All right, guys, welcome back for day 12 of the Love Dare for your marriage or your relationship, of course. So I just want to say how happy I am for you to be here. I am Brita Wallace, family and parent educator with Wallace Family Ministry. Forgot to say that in the beginning. You might not like me today after this dare. Some of these are quite difficult for us, right? As partners, as people, as humans, just to get. But I'm just gonna hop right in. So, day 12 is love lets the other win. Okay. So we always start with a verse, which is Philippians 2:4. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others, okay? So sadly, stubbornness comes as a standard feature on both husband and wife models, right? We can both be a little stubborn sometimes in our relationships. Defending our rights and opinions is a foundational part of our nature and makeup. It's detrimental, though, inside a marriage relationship, and it steals away time and productivity. It can also cause great frustration for both of us, right? So for both of you. Some things are worth standing up for and protecting. Our priorities, morals, and obedience to God should be guarded with great effort, okay? But we need to give up our own stubbornness, and we need to become more willing, okay? This is something that helps our marriage thrive. Okay, and what does willing mean? Okay, so willing is an attitude and spirit of cooperation that should permeate our conversations. All right, so there's only one way to get beyond stalemates such as these, and that's by finding a word that's opposite of stubbornness. And like I just said, that is willingness. I guess I kind of jumped the gun here. And again, that is an attitude and spirit of cooperation that should permeate our conversations. Okay, so follow the progression of his selfless love, and that's in reference to Jesus and how selfless he was for us. And we are to be examples of him if that's what you believe. If you believe and have faith in God and Jesus Christ, then he was sent here as an example of what we should be like as humans and how we should treat others. And it's sacrificial. It's it's sacrificing ourselves for others, and it's being selfless and being more selfless than we are selfish, right? So Jesus had the right to be served by all mankind, but he came to serve us instead. He had the right to live in peace and safety, but willingly he laid down his life for us, okay, and for our sins. He was even willing to endure the gruesome torture of the cross. He loved, he cooperated, and he was willing to do his Father's will instead of his own. So have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Christ Jesus. So that's a verse from Philippians 2:5, and it's telling us to be more like Jesus, as we were just talking about. So the attitude of willingness, flexibility, and humble submission, that's what we're talking about here. It means laying down for the good of others what you have the right to claim for yourself. That is a hard pill to swallow. Some of us don't want to do that. And all it takes for your present arguments to continue is for both of you to stay undrenched and unbending. Somebody has to be willing to say, I'm willing to go your way on this one, okay? And then the argument will be over. But so many times in relationships and marriages, we're not willing to say that, are we? And then, and though the follow through may cost you a few moments of pride and discomfort, because that's what happens, you have made a loving, lasting investment into your marriage, and that's the truth, isn't it? I think even hearing that, whether it's hard for us to hear that or not, once we hear that, and it starts to make sense, doesn't it? Well, yep, if I did do that, if I did bend a little, if I decided to say, hey, I'm just going to go with you on this one and I'm going to drop this, then the argument would be over. Things would cool down, right? One of us has to be willing to bend. And that's one of our key points is the moment that you say, I'm willing to go your way on this one, arguments and discord end. And this is a lasting investment into our marriages when we're doing that. If we're worried about losing, think about what you've already lost, okay? By making an argument more important, you have made it more valuable than your spouse's sense of worth and your marriage, okay? We are saying, this is more important to me. I value this more. Maybe it's just you want to be right. Maybe you're prideful and you're like, I don't want to admit that I'm wrong or that I can give into my spouse. But this should be a person that we value so much, and our marriage and our spouse should be valued above anything else, right? So many things I think that we look back on and when we get to the end of our lives, and there's so many instances where you see memes in these days, or you hear the elderly, grandparents, whoever it is, say, you know, I just wish that I didn't keep this grudge for 50 years or for 20 years, or I wish that this didn't happen, because we start to realize the older we become and the more wise we become, hopefully. Not everybody becomes wise as we age. That is a myth. I did a study on wisdom. You had to do it in human development. One of my classes might have been my human development class, like as simple as that is, either that or some psychology class. We actually had to study wisdom, and not everybody gains wisdom. That's not a thing. And I had to not interview. I had to create this study for 10 people. I think I had 10 people do it. And it was really, really interesting. If anybody wants to read it, because I had to evaluate. It was questions that the book gave you to ask, and scenarios that we had to come up with, and they gave you examples, and then you had to come up with scenarios, and then you had to, these scenarios you had to ask these people. So I sent them to these people. I asked for participants, and I sent them to these people, and they, and then I had to grade them on the scale of wisdom. And not everybody. There were some that were like really, really wise, and then others didn't have a whole bunch of wisdom, and then some were somewhere in the middle. It was very, very interesting. It was so interesting to see and to learn that not everybody gains wisdom. You just think with age that everybody becomes wise, and that's not true. So that was something that really opened my eyes in life, and something that I really learned a lot through school, that just really I held on to, because I just thought what everybody else thinks, or what most people think, is that as we age we gain wisdom, and we don't. We don't always gain wisdom. And why don't we always gain wisdom? Because, you know, I think this is just my own opinion, but because we are too stubborn, because we're too prideful, because we're too selfish. We don't want to grow. We want to stay where we are. And if we're always doing the same exact things, that's actually, you know, how insanity is often described, is that we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and we expect a different result. Well, that's not a very wise decision, right? It's naive for us to think that we're going to get a different result if we keep making the same choices. Who can we change? Can you change your spouse? Can you change your child? Can you change your friend who you're upset with all the time because they don't give in to you, or whatever, or your parent or your grandparent or your sister or your brother, or whoever it is that you are upset with, or, you know, you're mad at all the time because they're not changing? Well, maybe there are things in them that need to change. Maybe you are right. It doesn't mean that you're wrong, but it means that you can't change them. You can think that all you want, and it might be true, but we can't change other people. We can only change ourselves, okay? We can only change ourselves. So how can we do better? How can we be better? What can we do in this situation to change the environment the best that we can? In this situation, we can only change ourselves, right? So again, if you're worried about losing, think about what you've already lost. You're losing your spouse's sense of worth and the value of your marriage. You're valuing this thing, this stupid, trivial thing, whatever it is. I'm assuring you, it's probably stupid and trivial. Most of the things we get in arguments are. And there are things that are deep-rooted issues in marriages and relationships that do need reconciliation, and I get that. I understand that, okay? I understand that better than anybody, believe me. But we still shouldn't be valuing these things over our spouse or our marriage, right? We need to come to a place where we humble ourselves, where we become more wise, where we choose to change ourselves, to work to change the environment, okay? So we want to treat our spouse as our closest, most honored friend, right? They're supposed to be that person. When we first got together with them, when we were first dating, when we decided to marry them, we were like, we love this person. We worship the ground they walk on, which I don't recommend doing that for anybody, but that's how you feel. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm smitten. I just love this person. I adore them. I'm just so happy. I just can't wait to marry this person, spend my life with them. They're amazing. Even when they leave their socks and their clothes all over the place, I just think it's the cutest, funniest thing. But then you live with it every single day, and then you're like, oh my goodness, this is so annoying. This is a grown person. Why do I have to clean up after them all the time? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? And those things start to fade. Those things we thought were cute and like funny and oh, they start to fade, and then we get in arguments about these things. And it affects our relationship. It affects our marriage. I'm not saying you can't have a conversation about those things if you really, really want to, and you really value, you know, the socks being left on the floor. If that's something that's so important to you, then you can say, you know, you can have a conversation when you're both in a neutral place emotionally, okay? Not when somebody's like flipping off the handle and you're like, well, you leave your socks on the floor. I mean, that's not helpful. That just creates more of an issue, right? And we're all guilty of it. We all do it. There's literally, it's psychology that when somebody else's lid is flipped, their brain is like, they're out of their mind. Like when you say somebody loses their mind, it literally happens. It is absolutely true. And I'm drawing a blank on, and I usually know this, what part of your brain this actually happens to. It is, your prefrontal cortex. For some reason, I was drawing a blank for a minute. But it literally does not function properly. You're like literally losing your mind. That is true. It's not even a false statement. It's really true. And then it's called the flipped lid, approach. And they have this thing where you can like, with your hand, and I don't remember how to do it exactly because it's been a while since I've seen it, but you can like, when somebody else's lid is flipped, when they're losing their mind, well, it causes other people to lose their mind too, because it's like literally contagious. You're just like, somebody else is going nuts and you're like, you get in that mode too. And I know that I'm not explaining this well. If you want to learn more about that, I will post a video on it, and I probably will, just because it's very, very interesting. So to learn, what really happens when somebody is in that mode, it's like literally contagious, where we're like, you start acting that way too. And I mean, it really doesn't solve anything. Somebody has to say, okay, enough is enough here. This is crazy. We're literally losing our minds, and that's legit what's happening. So we want to treat our spouse as our closest, most honored friend, okay? So are we willing and able, ready and willing and able? We are able. I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say ready and willing to bend, okay, for our spouses, to demonstrate love to our spouse. So I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, guys. I lost my place. We've already If you think that you're going to look foolish when you give in to your spouse, well, you have already looked foolish. If you have, if you've been bullheaded and have refused to listen to them, you've already lost the fight by making this issue more important than your marriage. Okay, we've already lost. All right, so we have to think about what we've lost. And the wise and loving thing to do is to start approaching your disagreements with a willingness to not always insist on your own way. Okay, that's not to say that your mate is necessarily right or being wise about a matter, but you are choosing to give strong consideration to their preference as a way of valuing them. Okay, in fact, your willingness to reconsider may cause them to loosen their resistance to you and reconsider as well. Somebody has to make the first move, right? So love's best advice comes from the Bible, which says the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and willing to yield. James 3:17. So instead of treating your husband or wife like an enemy or someone to be guarded against, start treating them like what? Our most honored and closest friend. Give their words full weight. Value what they say, okay? You're not always going to see eye to eye. You're not supposed to, okay? We would be bored, right? As people and as in relationships, we would just be bored with our spouses if we were always to see eye to eye with them. So our dare today, I have to go back to work now, is to demonstrate love by willingly choosing to give in to an area of disagreement between you and your spouse. Tell them that you are putting their preference first, okay? And that's really, really important. So we got a puppy last year, I can tell you, and I really wanted to bring her with us. I was like, oh, I can just carry her around all the time, which would have been miserable. My husband probably knew that. Like, Rita, you're just being a little crazy right now. I was just so excited to get her, and I wanted to bring her on vacation, and we had a babysitter for her. And I mean, we weren't really arguing about it, but yeah, it was causing a little, we weren't on the same page, and we were like, I was, probably being a little bratty about it, like, oh, I want to bring her, and he's like, no. And I just was like, I'm going to give in to you on this one. And that was the thing. I happened to do that study when we were in the heart of that discussion. And I'm like, I got to give in to him on this one, right? I need to give him this win and say, I can tell you now that it was a good decision, but I couldn't tell you that then. I wanted to bring the dog. So when I had given in to him, I wanted to bring her. I had to say, no, I'm laying this one down. I'm giving into my spouse and what he is saying, and I'm valuing what he is requesting and our marriage more than this stupid issue that we have going on right now and disagreement on what we're going to do with the dog. So I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I can't wait to see you tomorrow for day 13 of the Love Dare for your marriage. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And make sure that you like and subscribe to my channel and share me with your friends. So take care and God bless.